Good morning. All right. So today is May 5, 2022. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. If you have anything that you'd like to discuss, please feel free to add to the agenda doc, and we'll get to that after the initial items here. You can find the link to the agenda doc in your invite. So first up today, KubeCon EU is coming up. Some folks are going to be attending. Specifically, Xing is going to be participating in the Contributor Summit, and there will be SIG storage meet and greet as well. So if you are planning to attend any of these events, feel free to throw your name in the doc, and you can sync offline if you'd like. With that, we're going to move over to today's agenda. So the group has been working on the 124 release that had been delayed to May 3rd this week, and it finally shipped. So 124 is now out. And so today we're just going to go over the planning spreadsheet for 124 and wrap things up, get a final status on what made it into the release and what needs to be moved to 125. And in our next meeting, we will do a 125 planning session. You can find the timeline for the planning session here, for the 125 release here. Important date to be aware of for 125 is June 16 is going to be the enhancement freeze for 125. If there's anything that you think that the SIG should be working on, the next meeting is an important one to attend. That's where we're going to try and lock down what it is that we're going to be working on. So please attend that. And bring your ideas, and if you're interested in helping, that's a good meeting to help as well, because that's where we assign folks for working on items for the next release. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the 124 planning spreadsheet and get the final end of release updates from folks. So the first item here was already completed, so we're good. Next item, recovering from resize failures. Looks like we're moving this to 125. Any other updates on this?
No, that's about it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hemant. Next is issues related to assuming volumes are mount points. Any updates from anyone on this? Is Jing on the call by any chance today? Okay, I will move this to 125, and then we can see if Jing is still interested in working on it. Next item is determine mount points without relying on proc mounts. And there were PRs. This was moved to 125. Any other updates? Okay, I'll plan to move that over. Next is storage capacity tracking for pod scheduling. Taking a look at this one, conformance test, PR merge, blog being reviewed, external provisioner PR is needed. Any updates on this one? Is Patrick on the line? Michelle, do you happen to have a final update on this one?
It's merged in Kubernetes. I'm not sure if the external provisioner part has been merged yet.
Got it. Okay. Let's. Next up, we have CSI ephemeral volumes, and the GA was delayed here. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, yeah, that needs to move to 125, and I'll continue working on this.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Next, we have volume group API. And I believe this is a design, working on updating the cap. So we'll go ahead and get this moved over to 25. Next is CSI, iscsi, and samba. I I've not seen an update from Humble on this, so we're going to go ahead and move this to 125. I assume SIFs and Samba are the same, Michelle?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I think this I saw some effort around this area. I think this might be resolved actually.
Gotcha. Put a comment here.
I think it was mostly there were some trying to get it to build in our repos. And I think that's been done. I'll double check.
Okay. If that's the case, then we can remove it from 125, but for now I'll plan to add it. Okay, next item is PVC volume names, volume snapshot namespace transfer. This was a design for the quarter, targeting 125. So I'll go ahead and get that moved over. Any other updates here?
Actually, I opened another cape to based on the populator approach, and I've added in the next line.
Got it.
So you have a cab. Is there a prototype, like a proof of concept that shows it can work?
Yep.
Awesome. I'm very excited about that.
And that's number 15, Misaki?
Yes. This one. So we might be able to merge the this one, but yeah, we need to agree on if transfer use case is covered by this cape.
Got it. Okay. Do we want to keep both of these open for 125?
Yes, please. Yeah, until we agree.
Sounds good. And for the second one, I'm gonna copy over that this is also a design. And I'll put a comment here to move to 125. All right, thank you, Misaki. Next is CSI volume health, which looks like was done. And docs PR merge, so this is done. I will leave that as is. Next up is CSI volume health programmatic response. This was designed for this cycle and it was not yet started. So we're going to go ahead and move that to 125. Next item is volume populator data source, which was completed. Thank you, Ben. Any new updates there?
The blog is done as well, so we can say it's 100%.
Nice. Cool. Thanks, Ben. Next item is Cozy. This was going through intensive design review this cycle. I assume we're going to move this over to 125. Okay, I'll go ahead and get that moved over. Next is change block tracking, also in design for this quarter. There was a few meetings this cycle, but I don't think we made too much progress on it. So we're going to move that to 125. Next is runtime assisted mounting. This will also be trying for an alpha in 1.25.
Yep, sounds good.
Cool. And so design, what's the state of the design right now?
So basically, the cap will be updated with a more simplified alternative to what was being initially considered.
Got it. Cool. Thank you, Deep. And next item is CSI proxy for Windows transition to privileged containers. And that's getting moved to 125 as well. Any updates on that one from anyone?
Latest I heard was there might be some lack of cycles in 1.25 from Mauricio. So we'll have to figure out who can spend cycles on this.
Okay. Next up is node expansion secret. This was alpha for this cycle. It was being moved to 125. Anyone else have a comment on this?
I just missed last minute change, so it should get in pretty easily.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you, Month. Next is SE Linux relabeling using mount options. I'm going to move to 125 on this. Any other comments on this item?
No, we will continue next release.
Sounds good. Okay, so the next couple items here are done. Then CSI migration core, we have no updates. I'm going to move this over to 125 just to make sure that we don't end up with anything that gets missed around core CSI migration. vSphere migration. There's a deprecation plan for this release. And I believe we're going to need to move this to 125. Anyone have any other updates on the vSphere migration side? Okay, we're going to skip over Azure and GCE. Those were complete. We're likely going to move those to GA next cycle for Azure and GCE. And then OpenStack is already GA this cycle. Ceph, let's take a look at those. So yeah, it looks like we're moving those to 125. Anyone else have any further comments on Ceph? And finally, Portworx. Anyone have a comment on Portworx? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and get that moved over. Okay. Then we have always honor reclaim policy. This was moving to beta this cycle. We're going to punt that to 125. Any other comments on this? Okay, I'll get that moved over. Next is control volume mode conversion between source and target PVC. Design was approved here. It was an alpha implementation. Status PRs merged and a couple left for review. Doc PR to be merged. Blog being reviewed. Any new updates on this? I'm going to say likely complete. Status update needed. Okay, we'll get that moved over to 125 just to get status update. Next up, we have secret protection. Misaki, this one is based on the next one. So I think both of these are moving to 125.
Yes.
That's good. We'll get those moved over. And both of them are going to remain in design for the next cycle.
I'm targeting to alpha,
Alpha?
for
The second
in-use
one?
protection one. Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Then ungraceful node shutdown was complete. Docs PR merge, blog and review. I'm going to go ahead and mark that as done. Anyone have any comments on that one? Okay, final item here.
I think it is the blog is also merged.
Awesome. That is good news. And that is Jing. Jing, we have a couple items I'll come back to since you're here. Get some updates. Sure. Volume expansion for stateful sets. Hamant, any updates on that one?
I had a call with Shalini, but it requires like a further design. I don't know if she's there on the call, but it's me and Jan also and some other folks talked about it. It's fairly complicated actually, and has to be designed like, I don't know, in this quarter. I think it'll be an achievement if you can design it, but it's looks simple on surface, but it's very yeah, complicated to achieve.
Got
So
it.
uh, yeah, if Shanley wants to pursue this, I don't know if she's there. She might have to set up regular meetings and design it continuously, because uh, there are like all sort of issues, like what happens if you're expanding like 4 PVCs, and expansion of 2 PVCs succeed, third one fails because you ran out of capacity. What should be the recovery? And many such things actually. So
Yeah, that sounds like a fun set of challenges to think through. So if anyone on the call is interested, this might be a fun design problem to tackle for 125 volume expansion for stateful sets. Okay, with that, let me go back to some of the items that we were hoping to get status updates on for Jing. So I guess first one here is issues related to assuming volumes are mount points. We said move to 125. Any other updates there, Jing?
I do have like a small PR pending, but I haven't finished testing a unit test. And also there is actually another PR that is also kind of doing similar thing, opened recently. I will check and see whether they're like doing similar things, and then coordinate about that change. Yeah.
Got it. Cool, thank you, Jing. And I think the second item we had here was determine mount points without relying on proc mount. Any new updates on that one?
Yes, I think the author who is working on this had a PR open, and so we will review that.
Got it. Cool. And let me see if there was anything else that needed your input here.
Is that the one that uses open app too?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Is that PR the one that uses open app too? To find the mount point?
Right,
Or am I
right.
thinking of a different one? It is that one.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's the same one. Yeah.
Okay. And this one we were good with. I think those were it. Thank you, Jing, for the input on that. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and switch back to our agenda doc. And I see, Carter, you have a PR that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I do. Let me grab the original because my PR is kind of a continuation of an earlier one.
Got it.
So I sent this one to the chat. So originally Matthew Wong had opened this PR to optimize cleanup mount points. This is causing some pain for a handful of customers for us. I'm from EKS. So, and Matthew basically just didn't have the cycles to take this across the finish line. So I've taken up implementing the option that everyone seemed to kind of coalesce around in this original PR. It basically detects certain behavior from the umount implementation on Linux installations and avoids doing these kind of expensive mount point checks if it can rely on the behavior of umount. So I don't think I've gotten any eyes from SIG storage on this, but I've got all of the testing done, and yeah, I think it's ready for consideration.
Yes, I got this change, and yeah, I'm plan to review this.
Okay, great.
And Carter, do you want to jog everyone's memory on which approach it is that you went and implemented?
Yeah, so let me actually link to the comment where these are kind of laid out. Okay, so in this comment, Matthew kind of gives the rundown, and we went with option 1 here. Basically, the primary or most popular umount implementation will fail with an exit code of not 0 and reply not mounted when you try to unmount something that isn't actually a mount point. So we can basically skip our own checks and just rely on umount to do the check for us. So when the mounter is created, it will essentially detect this behavior by creating a temp directory and trying to unmount it. And then it will later be able to skip the mount checks because it knows umount behaves in this certain way.
Got it.
So it's umount arrow is reliable depending on different operating system, or
so that's why we went with this option. I believe the implementation that BusyBox uses does not have this exact behavior. So if this exact behavior isn't detected by the specific umount implementation being used, then all the existing code paths are preserved.
okay, so there is a way to kind of verify this umount behavior is the one you can check, and otherwise it can go back to the original code.
Yeah, correct. I added some tests that essentially mock out the umount response, and yeah, that detection method is pretty well tested in this PR.
Okay, sounds good.
Anyone else have a comment on this? I know, Ben, you had some thoughts on this last time it was discussed.
Yeah, I mean, this approach sounds good to me. I mean, the only way I can see it failing is if someone swapped the umount binary out in the middle of a running system, which is impossible, right? Who would do that? So
yeah, it seems very unlikely, but it's a good call out.
So I don't, it doesn't make me nervous at all.
Okay.
Cool. All right, thank you for that discussion. And with that, there's no design reviews and no miscellaneous items, so I'll open it up to the room. Anyone have an item they want to bring up?
I have one thing. If we have a next meeting in 2 weeks, it collides with KubeCon. I think. So shall we do the planning at that meeting or after? Or
I think if it collides with KubeCon, generally speaking, we tend to cancel the KubeCon weeks and then do it the next week. So my proposal would be let's cancel the next meeting and then do planning in a month. That would put us at June 5th, which would still be in time for our enhancement freeze on June 16. It's okay.
It's pretty tight.
That's true.
What if we just do a 1 week cadence or something?
1 week later? Yeah, we could do that.
Like next week or something.
So I guess question is, do you want to do planning session next week or the week after KubeCon then? So next week or 3 weeks from now?
I mean, sooner is better than later the 124 is shipped and 125 is underway. So there's no reason not to do it if we have an available week.
Sounds good to me. Any objections from anyone? So proposal right now is cancel the next meeting in 2 weeks. Set up a one-off planning meeting next week. Any objections to that? Okay, I will go ahead and get that done then.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other comments, concerns, anything anybody wants to bring up for discussion today? All right. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you next week then.
Thank you.
All right. Take
Thank
care,
you.
folks. Bye.